Hey guys, welcome to Coffee Economics. My name is Abe. In today's Newsweek, we're exploring Nigeria's controversial pay story. We're going to be exploring as well two good news stories, one out of Kenya around the trade deal, and also looking at controversies around that too. Also going to be looking at a good news story around Bank of Kigali, which is an interesting one. And the last story we're going to also look at is around AI, and a big story around AI too. So let's get into it. Controversial story of the week in Nigeria around whether there's been a story circulating around that the president, the vice president elect and the elected federal and state politicians who are going to get 114% pay increase, which is huge. But is it really huge? First, we kind of need to understand of how much politicians get paid in Nigeria. And one way to look at that is to look at the president's salary. So apparently the previous president earned around apparently the previous president earned around $73,000 per year, so apparently the previous president Buhari earned about $70,000 per year. So that's our starting point, and now they're going to probably raise it to 114%. I have to say that as well, apart from the salary, many politicians get a huge allowances for different things, and there's a lot of allowances that they get, so that pay packet could be much more than just that salary, than just what their base level salary is. So Tinubu has come out, or the presidential office has come out and said that is not true. There will be no salary increase for political office holders or judicial officials. With that said, one of the interesting things that we need to talk about with this story is how we pay politicians, or how we pay people who are supposed to be doing this duty of public service, about how they manage the things that are in the public sector. Economics has come up with some ways to deal with this, and it's like the theory called the principal agent theory, it's the principle called the principal agent theory, where, for example, you'd set up a contract that makes sure that, for example, the manager acts in the best interests of the shareholders and the like. So in this case, the judicial politicians should be acting in the best interests of the public. But as we know, the way the African governments are set up is not really that there is any accountability of their performance to the public. And that's a big issue. And how we tackle that is something that needs to be addressed. And it's not going to be easy, because the people who put in the laws are the ones who make the laws of how they should be paid. So which makes it hard to even solve in the first place. But it must be a problem that we solve. And as Africans, we need to find a way of resolving that issue. And it's possible too. Because if we look at how corporate America runs, where, you pay a bonus based on your performance, that'll kind of solve some of the issues that we have around politicians getting paid money that doesn't make sense with the economic situation that's happening. Probably some sort of performance measures could be around the economy and social outcomes. For example, maybe how fast the human development index has increased, or whether they've achieved their performance goal of 2 or 4 7% GDP growth rate over that term, to make sure, and if they, or maybe not over that term, maybe halfway through the term, if they've achieved that goal, then they can get a pay rise, so that it's not like they will never get a pay rise, because if they lose the next term, they won't get any money. Setting up those types of goals will help kind of give a sense of setting up those type of goals will bring some accountability into the way political leaders manage the economy and our society as well. So even though this is apparently not a true story that there's going to be 114% pay rise, still it's an interesting topic to talk about, and about how politicians are paid, and whether we can find ways forward to make sure that they're paid in a way that makes sense with how the performance of a country's economy. So the next story I'm going to look at is Kenya's big deal with the EU, a trade deal to make Kenya be able to export its products without tariffs or a quota. which is a big deal for Kenya, as apparently 1/5 of all its exports go into the EU, and it's going to be a massive deal for Kenya. So as well, as part of this deal, there'll be imports from EU to Kenya, which are chemicals and machinery, but they'll be not going to be having no taxes or no duty on them. They're going to have a period of tariff reductions over the next 25 years, which sounds like a good deal for me, because if Kenya can make the economy much better in the next 25 years, there'll be a little bit more ability for local producers to compete with people in the EU. And I think this is a great deal. But this deal has come with controversies as well. Apparently, this deal was supposed to be done as part of the EAC, which is the Economic and Political Regional Bloc, for which Kenya is a part of. And in 2016, it didn't get signed. There were some issues around that. And this deal probably is going to sour a few people around why Kenya is going on this deal alone instead of being a united front as part of the EAC. So it's an interesting one that Kenya has done this. They've gone on a limb, and it kind of makes sense for them. They're facing some issues, particularly around making sure that they have enough revenue to meet their debt obligations. So making this deal is kind of a pragmatic solution, a pragmatic way of them being able to meet their revenue generation goals so that they can meet their debt commitments. And as well, there's going to be positive impacts for jobs, for wealth creation for Kenyans who are in the industries that are particularly going to benefit from this trade deal. So it's going to be interesting how this trade deal plays out within the EAC, which is the EAC sort of space. But at the same time, I think this could also not necessarily be a negative thing for the EAC. By Kenya getting this deal, and there's also going to be indirect impacts on other regions, they could also be benefits for EAC countries who are feeding into Kenya's trade. So it's not simply a lose-win situation where Kenya has won and the other EAC countries have lost. There's potential that if Kenya plays a pivotal role in developing and helping the other EAC countries grow, they could also benefit from this trade deal, and there can be a re-engaging of this EAC deal with the EU region on the whole. So it might not be great for it might not be what the EAC wanted now, but there can be potential benefits for the EAC in the future with this deal. So great news out of Kenya. So for the first time on this channel, I've got news out of Rwanda, which is going to be great news to start off with. And that's news that the Bank of Kigali has dispersed the great news is that the Bank of Kigali SME centers have dispersed $96 million in over 10 months, in just 10 months, to small and medium-sized businesses. Why this is great news, that I believe that small to medium-sized enterprises are the engine of economic growth for many African countries. It's not about giving big deals to the big multinational companies, because those companies have their own agenda of taking money and bringing it back to their own pockets in their own countries and building their own countries. Whereas if money is given to small and medium enterprises in Africa, they can be the engines of growth for not just the few that they will employ. They can be the engines of growth for many Africans, because those small to medium enterprises can also become large enterprises, national enterprises, and then they can become large sub-regional enterprises or regional enterprises, and from there they can also become the multinational companies that we see in the likes of the US and China. Because think about it, companies like Alibaba or the like didn't just start overnight as multinational companies. They grew from that local base and became the multinational companies that we see today. Of course, there was massive support. Probably those are not the perfect examples, but I'm trying to drive the point here is that the multinational companies that we see today are started as small to medium sized enterprises. And if we can make those small and medium sized enterprises can be supported enough by giving them the finance to build the companies, they can become the multinational companies that have a home base in Africa and can build Africa from within. So this massive demand for 96 million within 10 months is great and shows that there's huge demand for increase, and there's been success overall with this program from what we see in this article. So most of these people have been on time with paying off the loans, and 60% of them are repeat customers who are wanting to build or get fresh funding, which is amazing to see that there is appetite, there is potential for growth within the SME sector. So it will be really interesting to see how this plays out, and I think this kind of strategy would help many African countries develop from the ground up rather than getting aid dropped into Africa, particularly through trying to coax or woo these large multinational companies to build a base here. Most of them don't want because they're afraid of the risks or political risks. But if you can build multinational companies within Africa, they can push forward and become the ones that provide the economic growth that that Africa needs to experience, create jobs for many Africans, because they more than anyone else know what are the pain points that Africans face and what are the needs that Africans face, and they are the ones that can answer that challenge more than any multinational company that comes from overseas. So this is great news. Great to see that there is this happening, and it also shows that there is demand for finance by small to medium-sized businesses, and they do want to grow, and they can successfully grow. So the last story I want to talk about today is the story coming from McKinsey, who is a strategy and consulting company, and they have looked at the impact of AI will have on the economy. They've estimated that $4.4 trillion is going to be generated per year through generative AI. So when we talk about generative AI, we're talking about things like ChatGPT. And an interesting thing that they found is that the people who are going to get the most benefit from this $4.4 trillion pot of gold are going to be the developed countries, which is no surprise because they are the ones that are on the cutting edge of AI, regenerative AI, and using regenerative AI. And what they found is that these countries are going to get the most benefit because where AI is going to be the most useful is in industries which are knowledge intensive and high paying. So knowledge intensive is industries like R&D, marketing, sales, that sort of type of stuff that requires a lot of brain power to do. Whereas countries like China are going to be lagging behind in terms of that R&D, capturing those benefits from regenerative AI. Same with Mexico and India. And also that means Africa will also be lagging behind in getting the benefits of regenerative AI into the economy. So this is not a lost cause for Africa. Africa is already, as we know, is lagging behind in many ways, and one of those is innovation. But at the same time, we're leading in some ways in innovation, particularly around mobile money. Even though this report kind of shows that we're lagging behind in one particular area, Africa can still catch up in many other areas, just like it's the leading edge in terms of mobile money. AI is serving a particular purpose, particularly in the developed countries around finding new way to be productive in an aging population. So what I mean is that many of the people in developed countries are getting to retirement age, and there's not enough people who are young to take on those new jobs. So if you have a tool like AI, it will help fill the gap that those people who have retired have left, in a sense. So it'll still help those countries remain productive. So there's a real big reason why they are pursuing AI. Whereas the particular issues for Africa are very different. We've got enough population for jobs, but we don't have enough jobs. So even though AI seems like we are missing out on the AI boat, probably we are not really, because we have a different issue that we're facing compared to the developed world. But we still need to invest in innovation and the like. We still need to find new ways to solve problems. Like mobile money solved the problem of, not having enough banks within Africa, and all that payment system issues that we had. We didn't have enough financial penetration within Africa. So mobile money was an innovation that helped us and probably has generated millions and millions, maybe even billions of dollars in value for Africa. So I think government really needs to really boost their funding for innovation. Africa needs to innovate, but what will have the biggest bang for Africa will be different compared to developed worlds. And to be able to innovate, we need to invest in education. And there is data showing that Africa, in terms of its human development index, is still lagging behind the world average. So only about 2 countries, if any, only 2 countries are above the human development index of the world. The rest of those who have a human development index that's measured are below that average. So really, if we want to be able to play in the technology space, that's going to be the cutting edge frontier of economic development. We need to invest in education, and as we invest in education, we'll see more people come up with new ways and new solutions to solve the issues that are relevant to Africa. It's just like the rest of the world is trying to find solutions to the problems that plague them. Just like the rest of the world is trying to find technological solutions to solve problems that pain points for them in particular. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video and I hope you liked this. And if you did, make sure to hit the like button and share this video with anyone else who you think might be interested in hearing an economist talk about the news of the day. And that's it guys for this video. I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye.